Now that we learned the legend of the blue willow, we're going to be creating our very own blue willow pattern plates. And I want us to think about the story and the poem that we read and create our very own drawing, but try to include some of the things from our poem. So maybe you can pick your favorite and create your own design. So for example, the poem talks about the two birds that represent the two people that fell in love, a Chinese vessel, the bridge with 3 or sometimes 4 men, a Chinese temple, the river, the apple tree, perhaps the crooked fence. I want you to think about all of those things and create your very own version of it. So we're going to get our own plate today. We're going to write our name and our class code on the back, and then we're going to, with pencil first, sketch out our design. Our next step is to trace our design in Sharpie. That's going to create something called emphasis and really help our design stand out. Now we are going to be using washable markers to create that beautiful blue color that the Chinese used on their pottery. But we are also going to be adding a little bit of water to make it look like watercolor paint almost. So anything that you don't want to lose details on, make sure you outline in your permanent Sharpie, because as you can see here, I have a little leaf pattern, but up here it got kind of washed away. And that's okay because they're just leaves, I don't really care, but anything that has a fine detail, you're gonna wanna make sure you definitely outline that in Sharpie so it doesn't get washed away by accident. Now that I have everything I want outlined in Sharpie, I did want to show you that there were a couple things that I did not outline in Sharpie, and that's because I want those lines to be a little softer. So for example, in the water, I kind of want it to look a little washy. So I'm going to leave those as marker lines and not Sharpie lines. And then up here by my willow tree, I'm going to actually be drawing in my little petals and leaves with marker and then not adding water. So that's why a couple places are not outlined in Sharpie. So our next step is to use a variety of different blues to color in our plate. Anytime you use one color of something, it's called monochromatic. So we're going to be using monochromatic coloring scheme today. Any areas that have little tiny details like my little men or my turtle doves up here, you can actually use the skinny markers and just color them in neatly. But any area that you want the color to spread, so for example my water or maybe inside my tree or on my Chinese architecture here, I'm going to show you how to create a little bit of an outline so that the water can help it spread out. So as you can see, I went ahead and I colored in all my little details neatly with marker. I'm not going to be adding water on top. And the same thing with my willow branches. I went ahead and added my little leaves with my marker, and I'm just gonna leave them like that. So for inside my tree, I do want the color to spread. So I'm very neatly going to create an outline on the inside of my tree. So I'm gonna just go ahead and trace the lines around the outside of my tree. Now that I have this outlined, I'm just going to use plain water, clean, and I really want to be careful with how much water I put on here because since this is not paper, it's just a plate, sometimes the water can pool on top and spread where you don't want it to. So when you are ready to use your water, make sure you just drag it along the lip of your cup to make sure there's not too much water on there. And then you're going to very carefully add that water and gently spread it out. Our last step is to create a pattern along the edges of your plate. So to do that, you're going to use a little bit of blue paint today. And I'm also going to give you some white paint so that you can create your very own tints. A tint is when you take white and you add it to another color. So white makes it light, and it's also called a tint. So here you can create your own tints and use it to create a simple pattern along the edges. To mix a tint, all we're going to do is take a little bit of blue paint. And then to clean our brushes, to keep these nice and clean, we're just going to wipe out any blue paint on our brush. And then also wipe it clean on the sponge. So now I can come in with a little bit of white paint. And I can mix that right in and make a lighter version of blue.